Welcome to Horror Review Sunday. Let's talk about 1980's The Changeling, a supernatural haunted house thriller starring George C. Scott. This is directed by Peter Medak, who is the guy who directed Species 2, and we got the writer of Prom Night, Jamie Lee Curtis, and the writer of Humongous, and the writer of Curtains. So he did a few slashers right around the same year as this one. And I'm not a fan of those movies. Curtains, I kind of like. Humongous is shit, and Prom Night is overrated. This is probably this writer's best movie. So what's the story of The Changeling? Well, it's about a piano professor named John Russell who, after losing his wife and daughter in a horrible car accident, he moves to this big house that has a history to take his mind off things and start practicing his piano and writing music. He's teaching classes, but shortly after he gets to this house, he starts to hear and see some supernatural stuff, and there's a mystery. He's trying to figure out why this stuff is happening and trying to figure out what exactly happened at this house many years ago to make it so damn haunted. Getting into what I like about this movie is I like George C. Scott. I think he's a terrific actor, Academy Award winner, I believe, and he did other horror movies like The Exorcist 3, which I think is the better Exorcist movie, if you ask me. And, Firestarter, like any movie he's in, he's usually the best actor. And in this movie, he's the main actor, so that's great. And, he's a good character, sympathetic character. You understand why he's there. I don't really understand why he cares to solve this mystery that much, but you understand why he's there at least. The second best thing about this movie is the atmosphere of the mansion, the location used here. It's a very huge, grand, cobweb infested house that looks really spooky on the outside and kind of spooky on the inside, especially in the attic. Just the image of the wheelchair alone that's on the poster is kind of creepy. I really liked the music that they used. They use a lot of piano, which makes sense because the main character is a piano professor. But they also use a traditional orchestra, like a lot of stringed instruments, and I thought that the composer did a good job making some eerie sounds that really helped the atmosphere of the film. There's a pretty disturbing, brutal flashback sequence or like a vision. That's like the only moment of actual violence in the film, really, outside of maybe one other part that's off camera. But that's the best horrific scene in the movie. Just seeing that flashback, what actually happened in this house back in the day. Like that stuff I actually liked. And I also liked the camera work in the movie. I thought there was some pretty cool shots. And the whole climax at the very end, like the last 5 minutes, I thought was visually cool. Like the fire on the rails going down the stairs and the whole house going up. It's a pretty exciting climax. It's just the journey there that I have issue with, but it has a nice payoff at the end. And I appreciate that the horror in this movie is subtle. It's not a bunch of jump scares. It's just little things like the ball rolling down the stairs, and then he gets rid of the ball, and then of course when he gets back to the house, it's there again, and then the doors opening and shutting, cliche haunted house stuff. But I have to think that this movie kind of started those tropes. This movie has a lot of haunted house cliches, but I feel like this is kind of like the origin of those tropes. Every movie after this continued it, like the doors opening and shutting and there being ghost voices on tape recordings. Like you've seen that shit before, but not really before this movie. So it's kind of unfair to criticize it and be like, this movie has a bunch of tropes in it. Well, maybe this movie started those tropes. Getting to what I don't like about the movie is the pacing. This is a slow burn. It just crawls to the third act. Like the first hour I just thought was very slow. I just was having a hard time paying attention. I've already seen the movie 2 other times, so um, I think this is just a movie that was meant to be watched once. It's not a very entertaining, highly rewatchable movie. Once you already know the mystery, there's no point in going back to watch it because there's not a lot of stuff happening throughout to keep you entertained. It's just all about the story, little jump scare here and there with things shattering like the mirror. There's just not enough going on throughout to keep me engaged in the story. I'm not really into the story all that much. It kind of reminds me of Stir of Echoes in a way. The way the story unfolds and what we find out, it's like this kind of feels like Stir of Echoes a little bit. And the twist, if you will, the reveal is nothing spectacular, nothing special, nothing that makes you want to like go back and watch the movie again, see what you missed. It's nothing shocking, really. It's kind of spoiled by the title of the movie, really. If you know what a changeling is, that kind of helps you figure it out. Like a changeling is a child believed to be secretly substituted by fairies for the parent's real child as a baby. So there's no fairies in this, but it's basically that. And I just couldn't understand why this guy, John, kept going through this investigation like it was so important to him. Maybe he was just distracting himself because of the death of his wife and daughter. He just wanted something to do to, get his mind off of that. But why does he give a shit about this, house and its history and trying to figure out what happened to this kid and family that used to live there? Like, why does he care? Shouldn't he be more focused on his job? Like, how does he even afford a place like that? It's pretty damn huge. It's too huge for one guy. Yeah, like, that's just a nitpick. I just didn't understand why he cared so much about this investigation. Another thing is just the movie's not really scary to me. Like, there's some spooky shots here and there, like the wheelchair, a couple of little things that kind of made me jump when the mirrors shatter out of nowhere. But really, it's just not very scary. So final thoughts, I thought this was just kind of a run-of-the-mill haunted house mystery that has a nice, exciting resolution towards the very end and a nice, sympathetic, likable character who's played by a terrific actor, but the journey to that climax just was very sluggish, and I don't think this is a movie that is meant to be watched numerous times. It's not very rewatchable and it's not very scary. So when it comes to The Changeling, I'll just give it 3 out of 5 stars. As for a spoiler discussion, I don't really have anything to add here. I do question if this spirit, the spirit of this boy at the house, if it's able to kill the detective in his car, why doesn't it just get revenge and kill those who wronged him? Like, it seems like this house has been haunted for decades. I'm sure it was haunted when this boy's father was still alive. So did he kill his father and get revenge? Like, they just make him seem a little too powerful. Like, his powers reach other areas. It's not like he's only haunting whoever's at this house. He's making people see shit at this other house where his body was buried, and he's flipping over cars miles away from the house. So it's like, why didn't the ghost just kill those who killed him instantly as a ghost? Come back and kill them. Or like, why why doesn't it just write down a fucking message? It has all these powers. It's making this one chick with a pencil and all these papers that she's wasting. Just very reminded me of like Insidious in a way. But she's like writing. It's like the ghost is communicating with her. It's like, dude, tell her everything. Like, why be vague and why just have one word answers like Joseph, no, tub? Like, just fucking tell her everything that happened and we can end the movie right now. Like, it just is contrived so that the movie can keep going. Like, this movie could be over very quickly if this ghost utilized its powers and just killed everyone that it's pissed off at right away, like it obviously can. It kills the detective miles from the home, flips its car over. It's very much implied that he got in that car accident because of the ghost. Are we to believe that it was just some weird coincidence that the cop who was going to go get a warrant and tear that place apart dies in a car accident like minutes later? I don't think so. The ghost killed him. So it's not an innocent ghost anymore. It's not some poor child, some victim. This kid is now a murdering ghost, so he's not so innocent anymore. So yeah, I just have issue with that. Like, that's the problem with these supernatural movies, is that it just creates issues with, like, you have a hard time understanding how powerful exactly are these spirits? What can they do? Like, if they're this powerful, why aren't they doing this? And why don't they just fucking tell them everything? Why be so vague? It's just annoying. And then the ending gets a bit confusing with the whole the dude's looking through the medallion, and then he's like teleporting to the house, and George Scott can see him there. But then when he dies there, they find his body at the tower, and he's not burnt. So it's like he never really teleported, but like his spirit went there to crawl up to the attic so that he can see the truth and the vision or whatever. Like, I don't know, that got a little confusing, but whatever. So yeah, that's all I gotta say. What are your thoughts on this movie? I'm sure there's a lot of people who love it. I kind of like it. It's all right. I've seen it 3 times now, and I don't think I'll ever watch it again because, like I said, it's just not a very rewatchable movie. But what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And remember, it's all an opinion. You don't need to get butthurt about it.